Hi, I'm Reverend Wendy Craig-Purcell here at the Unity Center in San Diego. Thank you so much for watching today. If you'd like to support the work that we do here, please consider making a contribution. Go to our website. It's easy to do. Thank you in advance for that contribution. Paul wrote a letter to the Galatians, and he was instructing them in what a spiritual life looks like, what the fruits of a spiritual life are like. And in these letters that the apostles wrote to the early churches, they were often writing letters to deal with problems in the church. Go figure, even back then. And trying to help the congregations be able to be together in a healthier and in a better way. And so as Paul is writing this letter to the Galatians, he's painting somewhat of a picture of the light side of us and the darker side of us, or the big us and the little us, as we sometimes refer to it with our children in Sunday school. And he's saying that there are times that we are pulled into our darker natures, and yet the spiritual path is an invitation to be pulled into our brighter, lighter natures. And then he goes on to specify some of the qualities that are evidence of our spiritual awakening. And this is the way he defines it. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. That's a beautiful list, isn't it? I mean, that could be our spiritual homework for quite a while, to dig into it and to ask of ourselves, where and how might I do better in each of these areas of love, of joy, of peace, of patience, of kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. Last week, as you know, if you were here, we attempted to talk about the fruit of the Spirit of peace and patience, but we had the opportunity to live that lesson out as a community because of the medical emergency of one of our members. To be invited to sit patiently, to hold the space, even though we might have had our own thoughts and feelings of worry and concern. What is the practice of peace, really, but the ability to practice when it is challenging to do so? And I think we did, as I said a few minutes ago, quite well as a community with that. Today, as we look at the qualities, the fruit of the Spirit of love and kindness, it is very much love and kindness are what we are called to do. Next week, we're going to look at the quality of gentleness, which is about how we are to do it. But love and kindness is our assignment. It's what we are meant to do and be in the world. And to a significant extent, there's a naturalness to it. When newborns are in the nursery and one baby starts to cry, an infant starts to cry, do you know what the others start to do? The same thing. It gets really noisy in there. Really, really noisy. There's a natural compassion, a natural instinctive caring that we as a human species have for one another. In part, for our very survival, we are social beings. We are social beings. Love, to me, is kindness in action. And if you can't see it, if it's not demonstrated, then something's missing. And something's missing. We are called to be kinder. We are called to be more loving. And so I want to share with you this morning some ideas that I have on what each of us can do to broaden and expand in both of these qualities of love and kindness. And the first is this. The first is to deepen your sensitivity. Say that with me. To deepen your sensitivity. Now, I am not talking about sensitivity to yourself. Most of us are pretty good at being sensitive to ourselves. I'm talking about being sensitive to the other, being aware of the other, paying attention, more attention than you have perhaps in the past, to the experience of another. Proverbs 14:10 says, each heart knows its own bitterness, and no one else can share its joy. Each heart knows its own bitterness. One of our overarching themes at our Unity Convention this past week was the idea if I really understood your journey, I couldn't do anything but love you. Now, many of us can look at people in our lives that are sandpaper to our soul and say, oh, that's a real stretch place for me to love. But the truth of the matter is, the more we can really understand someone's journey, the easier it is for us to soften our hearts, to be more sensitive, and to show up in a more loving and kind way. It is only a little over a month ago that I very suddenly lost my father. And those of you who have lost a parent or someone very close to you may be able to very much relate to what I'm about to describe. In the few days right after that kind of loss, there's a feeling that is very surreal. Would you not agree? You find yourself having to do things, ordinary things, mundane things, whether it's got to go get some food in the house or got to pay this bill or got to answer this phone, just, life, right? But you're doing it in a very surreal kind of way. Nod your head if you know what I'm talking about here. And it's like all the rest of the world appears to be going on in the usual, normal way, but you're kind of in this place where it doesn't feel so usual or normal. And what I found for myself as I was in that surreal place when the news was so very, very recent, was that I started to look at people differently. People that, if I was in the store because I needed to be there for some reason, I was interested in the stranger in a much deeper, more sensitive way than usual, because I found myself in a place of wondering about them, wondering about what might they be carrying right now that I would have no way of knowing. Did they maybe just receive some really difficult news, a health diagnosis perhaps, or maybe they just found themselves dealing with a really tough thing with a family member? I would never know, but I found that I walked with greater compassion as I was aware of my own pain and sadness. It was as if I saw everybody around me with kinder, more loving eyes, with that deep question, I wonder what they may be going through. And suddenly the little annoying things that we all do once in a while, right? Didn't matter. So one of the ways that I think we can grow into greater love and kindness is to really practice being a bit more sensitive to the other. The second is to offer help whenever it is in our ability to do so. Very simple, right? But to make it really our spiritual homework and assignment, to offer help whenever it is in our capacity, whenever it is in our ability to do so. Jesus gave a beautiful teaching, a parable, on this very subject. We call it the parable of the Good Samaritan. And it's a parable about a man who was found injured on the side of the road, and a priest and a teacher saw the agony of that man, but still walked by and offered no help whatsoever. But it was a Samaritan, and that's significant because the Jews didn't really like Samaritans very much. And so Jesus gives a teaching saying that it was a Samaritan who took notice, who realized that he could offer some help. He might not be able to do everything, but he could do something. And the very least he could do was to go and try to offer help and support right there and right then. And the story goes on that he did, and he made sure that that man was cared for. To offer help whenever it is in our ability to do so. I was thinking about my mom. And I was thinking about one of the things to me that makes her so special is all her life she modeled for my brother and my sister and myself that doing little nice things for other people matter. How many of you had a mom or an older person in your life that gave you that lesson, right? Doing little nice things for others really matters, really matters. I know that when we are open, that the universe will put in our very path people that we can help. And the help doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be there when the need presents itself. Would you say that taking that on as our assignment, would you not say that that's one of the ways that we would bring heaven right here on earth? You're really quiet this morning. Yes. Heaven's, in our unity teaching and understanding, heaven is not a place. It's a state of awareness. It's a state of being, but it's also a practice. It's also a practice, and we bring it into the here and now by the ways that we interact with one another. And so I invite us to be more mindful of those opportunities that will present themselves to us to be able to offer some help and some kindness. In Buddhist wisdom, it's said this way: help, but if you cannot help, at least do no harm. Help, but if you really can't help, at least do no harm. Third, to me this is a big one. It's a little more in the trenches, but it's a big one. And it is to give others the benefit of the doubt. Say that with me. Give others the benefit of the doubt. What if we decided we are always going to assume the best of one another? To give others the benefit of the doubt. When we don't know, let us not fill in the worst possible scenario. When we don't know, let us not go to a place of judgment and criticism. Mother Teresa said, if you judge someone, you have no time to love them. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? I remember hearing a colleague use the statement or ask the question, how safe is it for people to walk through the corridors of your mind? Think about that one for a moment. How safe is it for people to walk through the corridors of your mind? Ours is a teaching that invites us to forever peel back the layers and to go deeper and deeper into our practice. Most of us who've been in this teaching for any length of time already know all of the basics. But it's about, can we peel back the layers and go deeper and deeper into the teaching, deeper and deeper into the practice? Are we willing to not just watch our outer actions, but are we also willing to watch our inner actions? If we really do believe that consciousness is formative and that consciousness matters, then the thoughts that we hold about others in our mind don't just stay in our mind. Somehow they emanate outward. Our practice is to be a gatekeeper to what's going on in this amazing thing we call our mind, and to catch ourselves. Not to beat ourselves up when we find that it's not too safe for some people to walk through the corridors of our minds. Not to beat ourselves up for that, but to step into a place of curiosity. Gee, isn't it interesting that I'm having this thought about that person right now? I'm going to do my best to clean that up. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to make a conscious effort right here and right now to assume the very best about that person. Let me ask you this. How many of you would prefer that others assume the very best about you? Raise your hand. Have you ever been on the receiving end, finding out later that others assume the very worst about you? Raise your hand. How did that feel? No good. No good. No good. So practice giving others the benefit of the doubt. Say that with me again. Practice giving others the benefit of the doubt. Akin to that idea is the idea of giving people room to grow, not holding people hostage to their past, not holding people hostage to their past, to their worst mistake or the last time they let you down, to not hold people hostage to their past, to give people room to grow and change. Do you want room to grow and change? to be your better self? I do too. I do too. Fourth is to exercise compassionate speech. Exercise compassionate speech. Say that with me. Exercise compassionate speech. Compassionate speech, or right speech, is one of the Buddha's eightfold path. Right speech is that which it causes no harm, not lying, not slandering, not giving offense, not gossiping or talking idly. One should speak pleasantly and benevolently or not speak at all. I think right now the world would be a whole lot nicer if we weren't allowed to speak, unless we spoke kindly and civilly. We can be passionate about what we disagree about, but can't we do it with some kindness? Yeah, with some decency. It's one of the things that birthed this whole idea of the living room conversations. Let us be able to be in conversation with one another compassionately. We're never going to agree on everything, but we don't have to be so ugly and nasty and mean in the way that we disagree. I love this wisdom from Will Rogers. So live that you wouldn't be ashamed to sell the family parrot to the town gossip. Isn't that great? So live that you wouldn't be afraid to sell the family parrot to the town gossip. In modern language, we would say it's about speaking kindly, truthfully, and most of all, being loyal to those who aren't present. Say that with me, loyal to those who are not present. Loyal to those who are not present. You know, when we are not being loyal to those who are not present, and we have young people seeing us and overhearing us and watching us, what are we teaching them? We are teaching them it's okay to talk behind someone's back. Do you really think it's okay to talk behind someone's back? When we're in our higher selves, I think every one of us would agree, that's not all right. That's not all right. I'm sure you've had the experience, as I have had from time to time, of finding yourself in a conversation with others where it does turn towards speaking unkindly about someone who is not present. And you, like myself, may have found yourself wondering, well, what do I do? Maybe I'll just be quiet, right? And certainly being quiet is a little bit better than chiming in, but it's not as good as what we could do. We could choose to remove ourselves from the conversation and explain why. And we could do it not with a holier than thou or better than thou kind of energy, but with a very gentle yet very clear way of teaching and modeling. It really isn't okay to talk unkindly behind someone's back. Or we might step into something a little more courageous and even ask, would we be all right to have this conversation if this person were here right now with us? Does it take courage to do that? I believe it does take courage to do that. It does take courage to do that. But these are some of the smaller ways, the very ordinary ways that we can begin to hold ourselves higher and model greater personal integrity in our practice of spirituality. Our practice of spirituality is not just things like the way we meditate and the way we pray or how we serve or how we forgive. It also shows up in these very little things. And it requires that we be vigilant in paying attention and that we hold ourselves personally to a higher standard. What I know is that whenever we have the courage to speak from a place of kindness, to say, you know what, it's not all right to have this conversation. This is not, we're expressing disloyalty to the person who's not here to explain or to defend themselves. When we have the courage to speak to that and not just let it go by unaddressed, we are actually helping to seed a different consciousness and behavior. It may not change that other person overnight, but it will eventually have an impact. I promise you that. I promise you that. And the fifth and the last, and I think this one is so very important, is do not let anything or anyone turn your heart bitter toward others. Do not let anyone or anything turn your heart bitter toward others. We cannot afford, as a human family, to become jaded. I want to read a story to you that is it's a legendary story. It's a beautiful way of describing this. A kind man named Al-Aman owned a beautiful Arabian horse. Another man named Omar wanted to buy that horse. He offered a lot of money for it, but Al-Aman would not sell his beloved horse. Omar got so angry he decided to get the horse by trickery. Knowing where Al-Aman rode his horse every morning, he lay down beside the road disguised as a beggar who was very ill. Al-Aman was a kind man, and when he saw the beggar, he felt sorry for him. He got off his horse and offered to take him to an inn. As soon as Al-Aman put the beggar in his saddle, the disguised beggar galloped away. Al-Aman chased after him on foot, shouting at him to stop. After Omar had put a safe distance between his pursuer and himself, he stopped and turned around. "You've stolen my horse," said Al-Aman. "I have one request." "What is it?" Omar shouted back. "Tell no one how you came into possession of the horse." "Why not?" "Because someday a man who is really ill may be lying by the roadside, and if your trick is known, people will pass him by and fail to stop and help." Is that not a beautiful story? It's a beautiful story. It's inviting us to love no matter what, to extend kindness no matter what, to not let the love or the kindness that we extend to others be influenced by whatever others may not be doing around us. When we do that, when we say, "Oh, well, other people are too busy," or "you just never know," or "I've got other things that I need to do, I got my own problems," or whenever we start comparing ourselves to what other people are doing so that we feel like we don't have to step up, we are lowering the bar of kindness and humanity for all of us. And we can't afford to do that. We can't afford to do that. As spiritual beings, we are meant to continue to stretch and strive toward being our very, very, very best selves, building upon what we are already doing, but not stopping there, being willing to ask ourselves more deeply, how more can I show up? Where can I show up with greater love, with greater care, with greater kindness? So in recapping, love is kindness in action. And the steps I shared with you were: number one, deepen your sensitivity to others. Be more aware of others. Second, offer help when it is in your ability to do so. Third, to give others the benefit of the doubt. Fourth, to exercise what kind of speech? Compassionate speech. And fifth, to not let anyone or anything ever turn your heart bitter. Namaste.
Many people enjoy Reverend Wendy's talks and meditations and aren't able to attend the Unity Center in person. If you're part of our extended family from around the world and would like to help support the Unity Center, please go to our website or download our free app, which offers even more ways to connect with the Unity Center. Namaste.